testing. Cool. All right, here we go. Hi, I'm Andrew, and this is Gilmar, and this is the No Prisoners podcast. We're Bucks County's #1 investigative journalists. Today, we are hosting Perry. I'm just gonna start over. Milo. It looks like Milou.
Yeah. He said, whatever you call me, whatever you want. Let me see. You call me your coffee, whatever.
Yeah. Milo. This is Andrew and Gilmar looking good behind me. This is No Prisoners podcast. We're Bucks County's #1 investigative journalists. We're here tonight with Perry Milou, amazing artist. But before we get into this episode, let's talk about our sponsor, 86 West, where we record from every week. 86 West is the best restaurant in Bucks County, possibly Pennsylvania, and the whole world. They have an exquisite menu of sushi, Kobe burgers, and amazing dishes. Great atmosphere, amazing staff, award-winning ownership and managers. This place has it all. And going into the holiday season, if you're looking for a place to host a small gathering or a large gathering, this is the place you need to do it. We record upstairs in their private dining room, which we host events at every month ourselves. So we know we eat here multiple times a week. We enjoy this food way too much. And it's a great privilege that we get to record here. This Saturday, November 11th, 6 to 10 p.m., fashion show, Lambertville, New Jersey, at Perry's Art Gallery. He's got amazing pieces of art for sale, one-of-a-kind pieces, sports pieces, pop culture pieces. He's got it all. And then on top of that, we've got an amazing fashion line being sponsored by Linelli's Closet. So come out, get your tickets. Tickets are benefiting Alpha Bravo Canine, which is a local charity, nonprofit that trains and certifies service dogs and then donates them to veterans in need. And if you know anything about our veterans, they need us. So get out there this Saturday. We'll see you there. And then,
versus what? A mic up or something?
What's up?
What's the difference without the mic, headphones?
Oh, you'll see.
Okay.
You'll see. So you can just get sucked into the
And that way you can hear where you need to be
into
with the microphone.
into the podcast land.
Yeah.
And that way you don't hear like any other bullshit.
I
That's
hate
going
things on my ears though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that?
I have very strong hearing, so I don't know. I like to hear everything around me. So like if the dog slipped or if somebody was coming up the steps.
That's probably deeply rooted into your genetics from like when you were like a caveman.
Well, I
had to look around you.
They
all
probably
the
never
time.
had wolves.
Yeah.
I have no sense of smell. I was born with no sense of smell.
No way.
So people think because I can't smell, I can't taste. But when you lose one sense, your other senses get stronger. So my hearing is like off the charts, almost like a dog's hearing or something.
Dang.
I can hear everything.
That's cool.
He sits up in the news like, "Whoa."
Yeah, I'm up quick.
Yeah.
Leaf drops. Yeah.
Are you if you had to choose between one or the other, do you choose dogs or do you choose cats?
I love cats. I've had cats, but my wife's not a cat person, so we have a big Bernedoodle. But I want to get another cat, but the cat wasn't voted in by the.
Do you know what that means?
What does that mean?
You're a killer.
I'm a killer.
Yeah. Cats, you can't trust cats.
Yeah.
If my cat was as big as Rambo, he'd have eaten me by now.
Yeah, probably.
That's the thing.
I like cats because they're so independent. They're predators.
Yeah, see? He's a straight killer.
He's a killer.
Dogs are not predators.
No.
That is definitely not a predator.
They were at their root when they were wolves, but
It's kind of crazy to look at Rambo though and be like, bro, you came from a wolf, my ass. Like, there's no way you're a descendant of a wolf.
we went skiing in Park City last winter. Have you ever been there?
Yeah.
There's homes there, but anyway, we went on an excursion in the mountain to this wolf rescue.
Oh, okay. I've been to
place.
one like in PA. It was pretty wild.
It was unbelievable. There was 100, and you can go on sleds with your kids and stuff and book all that, but they had 150 wolves. And then what's the bigger dog? The bigger one than the wolf? It's called
Dire wolf?
no.
There's a thing that bigger than there's a dog.
It's a giant wolf. He could be like 250, 225.
Damn.
I gotta look into this.
Giant wolf.
You would remember the name if I said it. But all these, they were like him. They were coming up to you and just kissing you, licking you, and they were all friends. And a blizzard was going on. It was the most unbelievable thing you ever saw.
They probably read your killer.
A Malamute.
Oh, Malamute. Yeah,
Malamute.
Alaskan Malamute. That's what Sonny has.
So
No way. Does he?
That's what he walks around Manhattan with that.
He's crazy.
these people that have this rescue farm or whatever you want to call it, people from all over that area, they started small because they're on the Olympic like the Iditarod team or something.
Okay.
These people, they're from Mexico, and they got such notoriety that people drive 300-400 miles away and they leave their dogs there on their fencing to be rescued because they can't deal with the huskies and the wolves anymore because they have the energy and whatnot.
There's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. So this place is a haven. It's unbelievably gorgeous, and the dogs are unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What like how long? I guess you've been probably doing painting and artwork since you were a little kid.
Yeah, since I was 5, I should have brought my little drawing. I did a drawing of George Washington and Abraham Lincoln just in pencil.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to be like this the whole thing?
I mean, as long as Gilmore says you sound good, then you sound good.
Yeah, get a little closer. I think it'd be nicer.
I can set you up here.
You want to kill my phone, Gilmore?
Yeah.
Testing. There you go.
You want me to answer it?
No. There's no one to talk to.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
You could sell the big piece though.
You can speak to them in Spanish.
Just turn to mute it. Yeah,
It's an iPhone, Gilmore. You're not familiar with this technology.
yeah, you can bring it here. I'll just mute it.
I know there's a little button somewhere. But you can switch it to mute
I'm amazed you didn't bust into flames.
with the case. Oh, there it is. Well, you can keep it there.
Yeah, I recognized it at a very early age that I had this creative gift bestowed on me to be an artist. And people always ask you the question, when did you know? And I think in first grade, we were reading, or second grade, Huckleberry Finn, and there was this giant sheet of brown paper that the teacher would tape up on the wall, and we all got to go up and try and draw a character or something. And I didn't put the crayon down, and she kind of had to remove me from the wall, like, Perry, that's enough. And I knew then. I said, this is what I do, you know. And then it got to being where you would put remember how you used to cover your textbooks with brown paper, the shopping bags?
Yeah.
And everyone would draw on them. I used to take, in third grade, I used to go to 7-Eleven after I would get off the bus and buy a pack of baseball cards for 25 cents, get my doubles, get another piece of gum, put them in the cards, and with colored construction paper, like do origami, rewrap them, tape them, and draw one of the Phillies on the cover.
Okay.
And put, like, I don't know, 30 cents, but every pack had a Philly in it, and I would draw an illustration of one of the players, and I would bring them to school and sell them. So I was making money in third grade off my art and the baseball cards. I got pinched in 2 days by the principal.
I got pinched.
So I had to, my mom came to pick me up. She goes, what happened? I said, I'm just selling my doubles, Mom. You know, so that was the sales and the art mind already working in, like, second grade. I remember doing it all the time. We always made sure there was a couple Phillies cards in the pack, because if you went to the store and you got your pack and you were no Phillies in it, you were upset. You know, but nowadays they sell these packs, these baseball and sports cards are crazy. You could pay like $30-40 for a pack of these cards now. And they have all these holograms and this art, and famous artists are making these cards, and it's really, really wild. So, but yeah, I knew at a very early age.
Where'd you grow up?
My family's from South Philadelphia, from the old, you know, Italian neighborhood down there. But I grew up, my mom is from there. I grew up in the Cheltenham, Jenkintown, Mount Airy area.
All right.
My mom divorced when I was very young, and we moved to Lansdale. And then my mom remarried, and I grew up on the main line in Haverford.
Okay.
Which
A
is
little change up.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
change up.
Yeah.
And then I went to college at the University of Arizona in Tucson, which is a gorgeous place.
Yeah.
And then I came back, and I right away pretty much moved to Philly, and I was downtown for 25 years between.
Did you go to school for art, or what did you study in college?
I have a degree in fine art, a Bachelor of Fine Arts. My stepfather was in the meat packing business, so he was in big business. He didn't really understand art at all. He just understood numbers.
Yeah, the bottom line.
My mom was a ballerina when she was 12 years old, professional, and an actress and a designer. She grew up. So I got a lot of that from her. And my biological father was a pretty famous restaurateur in Philadelphia. Had some unbelievable restaurants, Rouge and Striped Bass. So I got a great pedigree of talent from my parents and from my stepfather in business. But long story short, he lived in Tucson when he was a little boy, and he said, well, let's go visit that school because they have a good art program at the university, and if you decide you don't want to play around with your paints anymore, you could go into a major. And I got into Pratt University, and I got into the good schools in Philly, but once I got to Tucson, I was like, wow, this place is...
Yeah, place kicks ass.
No one's got any clothes on in here, so I'm going to school here.
Yeah.
You know, it was
That's a big party school.
Yeah, it was pretty much sex, drugs, and rock and roll from 85 to 90.
That's cool.
I didn't do much of anything. And when you're an art student, you don't really have to do too much. Really, nothing.
Did you, now, like, you were a young man when you started kind of like hustling your art, but did that continue through like high school and into college? Like, were you still actively painting and selling your work, or when did that kind of come together?
Not really in college, because I was just having too much of a good time. But I always knew that I had the ability to sell, and I had what they don't teach you in college if you're going to be a fine artist. You know, graphics weren't really into play in 1985. Like the first, I guess, Dell or Mac, or I don't even know what the computers were. The internet was born when Clinton came into office in the early 90s, and there were computers, but it was a very, you couldn't study graphics is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, but as a fine artist that knew how to draw, and I studied graphics, and I studied illustration, and I painted, and I made sculptures. So I knew that I had the ability to sell because I like to talk to people and I like to meet people, and I'm very extroverted with my personality. So I always knew that was there, and you can't teach that in school. Kids go to art school. I see talented kids everywhere. There's tons of talented artists in this area, Lambertville, Philadelphia, wherever I am. But most artists don't know how to market themselves. They don't know how to sell. Most of them are introverts, and then they're always either trying to find somebody to help them, or they just kind of paint and don't make any money.
Was that like a key to your success? Because I looked into you a little bit before this podcast, and it seems like your art has reached out into the world much more than, you know, the majority of artists in this area. You have a lot of like muralists, people painting covered bridges and things like that, but your art has kind of like a uniqueness to it. So do you think it's like the uniqueness of your art paired with your ability to sell it and move it that makes you successful?
Well, yeah. And I mean, if you just look at the word success, like I was saying a minute ago, you can find a muralist or someone that paints Bucks County impressionistic scenes that's extremely talented, and I would say that they're successful. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be financially successful if they don't learn how to sell it. There's so many ways to sell it. And going back to talking about my art, I because I think I was trained as an illustrator, and I think my pieces are illustrious, big illustrations. I kind of fall in between this realm of illustrational graphics and fine art. If you look at my imagery, and I kind of almost consider myself an image maker. I don't necessarily still have one particular brand. If you look at most artists, like you say, an artist that paints covered bridges, they're probably just going to paint covered bridges for 10 or 20 years or a long period of time and develop that brand before they maybe have the courage to experiment and do something else. I'm always trying to do something else. I'm either painting a sports figure or a famous person or someone that might not be famous but that's iconic. But then I've done scenery.
I saw there was one painting when I was at your gallery 2 weeks ago. There was one painting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did you do a painting of Harambe?
Yeah, I did do it. Where did you see that? Was that out?
Yeah.
I I don't remember having it out.
Yeah,
it was out.
In the back office? That was out?
No, that was
Oh.
in the one room. You had like the TV set up for the game. For the people there, there was a lot of people there watching
Yeah,
the Phillies
it was
game.
over
It's
there.
funny as hell.
Oh,
But
no,
you had the one room with the Pope, and then you came back, and it was there was the wall with like the 4 or 5 Frida paintings, and
You
then
saw-
in the last room there
You
was
saw the giant painting?
it was a big painting.
Okay, so that wasn't Harambe, but I did paint Harambe. And that is in the back office. That's why I said that wasn't even out.
That's funny.
But
Okay.
that was a painting of a silverback and an orangutan, which is a whole nother story. But the point of your question about, like, I guess you might be thinking, like, why did I paint Harambe?
I guess, yeah, where I was going with that was
Yeah.
some of your paintings kind of looked like, and there's probably a vocab art word for this, but
Pop culture, pop art.
They look like it was capturing the moment
Yeah.
at a certain time.
Sure, and that, I grew up loving Andy Warhol and Peter Max and Roy Lichtenstein and these pop artists from the '60s that took pop culture, or it could be a product like Warhol did Campbell Soup, or it could be a superstar or somebody, and that's kind of what I was inspired by as a kid. And with it being tying in that my mom was in entertainment and my father in some ways, it just kind of something that was always appealing to me. So I'm inspired by so many different things. I'm going to paint Matthew Perry tomorrow, and I often paint people. People always tell me, as soon as somebody dies, you paint them. My dad was an addict for over 50 years, but very successful at what he did. He wasn't the best family man. So I'm drawn to, for instance, when someone passes away, like what just happened last week, or an Anthony Bourdain painting that was in my gallery, that inspires me, and I'll capture it. Now, the painting of the gorilla wasn't an addict, but the story itself was so captivating on the news and what happened, and just that I love animals, and I saw what happened, and then within 2-3 days, you saw I think it was in the Cincinnati Zoo. The kids had the shirts and everything. So, my business mind says, okay, paint Harambe, you're going to sell that real quick, and then maybe you can make some prints. But it was also something that touched me and appealed to me. And, next thing I knew, the Harambe painting was done in a day or two.
Now, like, when you have like a situation like that, like as a salesman, I can definitely see, like, okay, like this topic is really hot and polarizing right now. If I create a piece around this, I'll be able to like move the product.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Do you still need to be inspired by the situation? Because like there's tons of polarizing things going on in the world at any one time, but you still like have to channel some sort of creativity from it.
I pretty much have to be inspired by it. I'm trying to think of a painting someone asked me to do a couple weeks ago. Someone that I don't know, I can't remember who it was, but I was inspired by the person, so I didn't paint it. And I'm more apt to feeling that way now that I'm a little more tenured, or a little more along in my career, that if I'm inspired by it. Like now, I'm not somebody that watched Friends, but I knew who he was. But I'm more touched by his story and what his addiction was and all that. But
Did it come out what happened to him? All I know is that he drowned. I don't actually know the details.
It will come out, but I think that Hollywood and our society doesn't like to, when they talk about addiction, get into what really addiction is and a disease, whether it's alcohol or heroin or cocaine or what it is. It's not that, the disease becomes your addiction to the device of the drug that you're on, but it's not the drug that's causing the pain. It's the under layers of the onion that caused you the trauma in your life, whether you were abused, or a young girl that was raped, or your dad beat you, or something horrific happened to a family or friend. That's what causes pain, and that's what causes people to escape. 'Cause I escaped plenty of times when I was young, because I didn't see my dad for 20 years. When my mom divorced him, I didn't see him for a second, and I know how destructive I was to myself. So I think that when you listen to the news about that, and they'll talk about how he was battling his demons, and how he was in and out of rehab, and you hear this about musical stars and actors, famous people all the time. I don't think they ever really get into too much of what was underneath it all. Just a lot of time you hear, well, they were fighting the addiction, they were trying to beat the disease of the addiction, but I I think they kind of shy away from the real story sometimes. Like,
Do you think it would be more helpful for society to know those stories then?
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
because then people can relate. I have a friend who's fighting. I have a bunch of friends that are fighting addiction right now, and I have a personal friend who's fighting addiction. She's an older woman, a friend of a wife of a friend, and she's fighting alcoholism, and she's really battling it. She was sober for 13 years, and she's really battling it right now. But she needs to sit down in therapy, or whether it's inpatient or outpatient, and start to figure out what she needs to let go of. You know, forgiveness to me has always been the salvation to all of that. Like, you know, whether you have to forgive somebody that hurt you, and then whether someone hurt you or you caused shame or you have all this self-shame and guilt, you have to forgive yourself. And then when you can learn to let go of all that, then you're free and you feel better. I used to have a lot of hatred. I had hatred towards my father. I had hatred towards friends, the people in relationships. And I got to the point when I got older, I actually had a brain tumor when I was 40.
Oh, shit.
I had a pituitary tumor, which is the pituitary gland at the base of your brain. And after I had my surgery, 11 hours, it changed a lot of things in my life. And I looked at things differently, and I became very philanthropic with my artistic endeavors. But I went very, very deep inside of my past and what I needed to do to feel better about myself from inward. And I let everything go and forgave people and forgave myself. And I'm a really healthy, happy guy now. I don't have any resentments towards anyone or anything. Even if somebody does something that trips me up or I don't like, just let it go, because it's about the other person. It's not about what's inside of you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. I'm like, let's get them. Did you see a change in? Yeah.
Well, look, that could happen to me too.
Yeah.
But the more I try and evolve inward, it's easier for me to let that go. Like, that's a perfect example of every day of you staying present and being able to let things go.
No, I understand. What, when you're talking about like that transition in your life where you go from, it's actually behind you.
Oh, okay.
We got you.
Go ahead. We
I
were getting off my art into spirituality, but I love to talk about that
I
too.
know, like how hard did you, like, maybe not hard, like when you went through that transition over a period of time, can you look back, and if we lined up a piece of artwork from like every year of your life that you did, could we see like a transition from like angry Perry to like happy-go-lucky Perry?
It's a really good question. I guess if we looked at the full body of my work, we could. I had this woman that came into my Philadelphia gallery once. She was this beautiful middle-aged African-American woman. She was dressed in all this cultural clothing. I met her through my dad, and she was like a medium. Her name was Sheba. I can't remember her last name. And she came in, and I just opened this gallery on Rittenhouse Square, and she incensed the whole place. And I didn't even know her. I was just getting to know her. And she looked at these paintings that I had done of some angels, angelic stuff from the Renaissance, because I always loved Da Vinci and Michelangelo and Raphael, all these Italian artists from the Renaissance. And she said, all you need to do is paint angels. She goes, that's what's inside of you. And my mom's name is Angel, and my wife's name is Angela, and her dad's name is Angelo. And I'm born on St. Francis Day, which is October 4th. And my family's last name is Di Francesco, which is also St. Francis, because the Pope is Francesco. So I don't know if you saw the painting that I did of Pope Francis.
Yeah, I have questions about some of those paintings for sure.
So that's one that I would talk about, kind of a full circle evolution of combining my feelings about being spiritually or learning to become more spiritually evolved, and then putting it into my art, about my art speaking from inside instead of maybe like a sports figure. Although I'm very inspired by this young man, Jalen Hurts. I think he's an incredible soul, and the way that he handles himself is, to me, far more impressive than what he's doing on the football field. And if I get a chance,
would you agree?
Yeah, I'm a huge Eagles fan, so
yeah,
I see it. He's a leader through and through, and he doesn't waver, man. He's just, no matter what's happening, he's calm and he's
so
focused.
humble.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like they told me tomorrow, don't even bother asking him for his autograph. Don't, you know, I mean, I might get it because he feels the energy or whatever. Or a picture, I mean. I'll get the painting signed. But there was a room in the studio where I had all these hearts painted with the hands and the legs. It was in a spin art room. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, I was in there.
It's a brand that I've been working on called Spread Your Love, and it's about kind of like universal forgiveness and surrender. And I make these different hearts, and every time I draw it, it's a different face because I've been drawing it by hand for years. And I'm trying to develop the character. I have some friends working on some children's book about it, but that's like my art that's from within, like what you're talking about. And that's something that I'm trying to get more into, and we'll speak more about Perry than a series of Frida Kahlo's or Audrey Hepburn, who I really couldn't tell you too much about, by the way, but I know people.
I mean, it's a nice painting.
But exactly, people buy it, and you know that's part of me. I'm like a pop art whore, so I don't need to know much about her. I just need to know that people are going to buy it, and then you know make 10 of them, and I know that I'll sell 3 a month, and it'll cover my car, and it'll cover this, and when it sells, you have to paint another one, and you know.
Well, there's art as a business, and there's art creation. Like my art is building beautiful homes, but that affords me to do this, which is so like you kind of like if anybody ever came along and like I'm assuming people like there's like art purists where they're like you have to paint from the heart always.
They don't like me.
Yeah, yeah, but you get the opportunities, and that when we were talking earlier about your ability to sell, I think that makes you financially successful, which in return can make you a better artist because it gives you the freedom to...
That's the goal. That's a big goal, because what I was just talking about, the characters that I'm drawing from within inside, it would be a huge risk for me, and I'm all about taking risk because I think I've taken plenty of risk to get to where I am now. I'm all about risk taking because why are you living if you're not willing to take risk? And, you know, a lot of times you would think that they're what you call educated risk or smart risk. But if I were just to do those and develop that 24/7 for the next 6 months, it would be a risk because I don't know what would happen. But living in the unknown is a beautiful thing also, because then you're just so present because you don't know what's going to happen. But you're right. My ability to understand the art of business, the business of art, is giving me that freedom. And when I get older and my kids are married and I'm still relatively young, that's the art that I'll be making. And I'm trending to try and teach myself to do a little more of that every day. Like if I have 60 minutes at 3 to 4, I'm going in that room and I'm working on that art. And then I'll do the other stuff that I have to do the rest of the day.
Yeah, because you have to feed the soul.
Yeah,
but you also have to feed the bank account.
Yeah.
Because kids got to eat.
It's a balancing act. Yeah, 2 kids, a home, a wife, you know, bills, this, that.
How old are your kids?
My little boy just turned 8. My daughter just turned 13.
Okay, so still pretty young.
Yeah.
Are they into art at all?
My daughter's, I would say my daughter's, because she's older, I can kind of see where her creative level is right now. She can sew, and she's very good dimensionally and with textiles and stuff. And the little guy is just kind of like Mark making Basquiat type, you know, graffiti.
Making
stuff.
airplanes and things.
Yeah. So
what any 8-year-old does.
And young kids, when it's their parent, they don't want to take too much artistic direction from their dad. You know, if I went and visited their like art class in school, I'd be like, "Wow, that's pretty good," because they're listening to someone else.
Yeah. Have you ever, like, when you paint these paintings of, you know, celebrities or athletes or different, like, is there any sort of like how does that work? Like, if you know. You're taking a picture of someone and then like you're selling it, like is there any sort of like challenges there from like a business side that like somebody from their team could reach out and be like, yo, you owe us?
Yeah, big challenges. So when I did the painting of the Pope, because of like this cyclical connection with my namesake and the family, my wife said, because they announced he was coming to Philly, she said, "Are you going to paint Pope Francis?" I said, "Well, I really didn't think about it." And she says, "Well, you know, you're born on the day of you're born on St. Francis Day, and your mom's name and my name." And she said, "It's a great story." I says, "Okay, now that I think about it, I'll go paint him." So I went online, and I've never been one to... so to answer your question, and then I'll finish the story, artists that make paintings, and Andy Warhol did it and got sued, and he just got sued for a Prince piece that he did 25 years ago, and he got sued even long before that. His foundation just got sued for using a photograph of Prince that he used for the artist, for a silk screen. So when I grabbed the photo of Pope Francis that I turned into the painting that I then licensed for the event and became like the papal portrait for his whole visit to the United States, I licensed it to the Archdiocese and to the World Meeting of Families, and I did quite well with it. And then I had all these other deals going on the side where I was using my business mind kind of against who I licensed it to. It was a real hoopla. But I used this photograph that was a Getty image where you technically, if you're an artist and you want to use it, you have to buy the license for a certain amount of time, and then you can only use the image in certain arenas that you're buying the license for. It's kind of like going on iStock Photo or one of these sites and using the imagery. But artists have to prove in creation whether they're using the image from another artist or photographer in a derivative sense or transformative. So Shepard Fairey, are you familiar with his art? He did what launched his career was the Obama Hope poster. Yeah. In what year is that?
2008, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so he did that, and he used an Associated Press
that crushed, by
image.
The way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he went to federal court, and he said, fuck you. I looked at a bunch of different images, but I didn't use any one, and he got pinned for being completely derivative. He just took the one picture and mirrored it on top. And he had to pay $1.5 million fine, but he had to wait to do it, and it launched his career. Now he's one of the most famous street artists and muralists in the world. I was just in Miami a couple months ago because I used to live there when I had my gallery, and his murals are all over the place. So they compared me on BuzzFeed to him right next to each other with what I did with the Pope image. So when I got in hot water with Getty, they called me. I was eating dinner, and I'm like, "Whoops, there's Getty calling." But I kind of knew it was them, and I'm like, "I'm eating dinner. I'll call you tomorrow." Click. My wife's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just Getty." She's like,
just one of the largest image holders
just
in the world.
Just another copyright problem for me. So I called them back. I didn't call them back the next day. Then they really started hounding me. So after about 3 days, I'm like, "Okay, I have to get an IP lawyer." So I called a couple friends. Long story short, I had to pay for the license. I had to pay a fine, and then I had to give them a piece of all my action. So, I mean, it was I guess it's all relative to like Shepard Fairey's project. I had to pay maybe $20,000 or $25,000 in total, but the project netted it didn't net. It probably grossed between $200,000 and $400,000, and it got me pressed like you wouldn't believe.
So it was almost like a ticket to play.
Yeah, and I knew right along that if I was going to get pinched from it, what I was going to do, and I played it perfect because I knew how to play it, and I kind of expected it to happen, and it all fell into place. So, and like, for instance, he could come to me tomorrow and go, "You got prints of that thing, or are they floating around?" Because I was going to bring one to the security guy, the head guy that I have to meet. You ever see the big guy that's always walking around with the coach, Dom?
Yeah, Dom.
So I got to call Dom tomorrow at 12 o'clock when I go down there, and I was going to bring him one of these here. And then I said to myself, well, I mean, it's on the podcast, so if they hear it, too bad.
I mean, it was a couple weeks from. It'll be next week, so I'll give it time.
It doesn't matter, yeah. But he could, for instance, see that because this is his brand. It's got the Eagles name on it. But as an artist, that's what I want to do. I want to get their attention because I want them to say, "Hey, that's a hell of a thing he created. We can now take this to Mike Rubin at Fanatics, and we could turn it into a jigsaw puzzle or this or that." And that's what a commercial artist does. If they're smart, they don't ask for permission. They always apologize.
Yeah.
So there's the forgiveness thing. I never ask for permission. If you ask for permission, they're going to be like, "Are you crazy? You can't do that." So, I
ask
just
for
do
forgiveness.
it. Yeah.
So as you came up before social media, or you're still kind of coming up in a lot of ways. You're in it right now.
I'm in it. I'm a nobody in social media.
But when in terms of like social media and that creativity, like how does, because I really like a lot of your artwork had a lot of, you could kind of like see the underlying tones, and some of it's very commercial, like the sports stuff. But you did one painting that I think was of the coronavirus.
Yeah, I did.
And so there's things that you're doing that are just like wow, I would have never thought to do that. And then so like I'm very interested when someone like yourself that lives in that creative world but also lives in the business world, how do you look at some of these like creators that are making videos or the graphic art that we have nowadays, like AI excluded because that stuff's just, we don't like that.
How do I look at the success of the
Like,
social media creators versus
like,
me?
Not necessarily versus you, but when you look at that creativity, did you ever think that would happen, or like do you appreciate that culture like the same way you appreciate, say, like fine art?
I'm a little confused. So like my commercial art versus like that piece that I created?
Yeah, not necessarily your art, but like because you're an artist, I'm trying to like understand how someone like yourself looks at the people that are making like these creative videos or graphic art with like a computer.
Like NFT art?
Even that, yeah, that'd be a perfect example because you're doing it like I could see this in my head, but I don't know how to put this onto a canvas.
I you know, it's a good question. I think at first, because I had an NFT project that I was developing with my Spread Your Love Hearts, and I had a guy in New York that I went to college with. We spent 4 months on it. We didn't put any money into it because it was all research and development. We were talking to guys in India every day, different countries that were building these Web3 websites where, you know, you would have to mint the NFTs, and I mean that whole NFT thing exploded because this one designer, I can't even remember his name now, he went to Sotheby's, he made a deal with them, and the piece sold for $49 million. Do you remember? Or?
Yeah, he was on.
He was just a designer, and he took all these little squares and he put it together. I can't even remember.
He was on. I'm pretty sure he was on Joe Rogan. He does like one piece of art per day.
Yeah,
but it's a digital piece.
It was a digital. So that sprung the whole NFT thing. But not just to stay on NFTs. I mean, I appreciate everything in an art. A lot of things in an art form. And when I see this digital stuff or this graphic stuff, some of it I like very much. I think it's fascinating that somebody can do that on a screen. I can't. They probably look at what I do and say, how does, like what you just said, how does he come up with that? You know, how does he take that and put the gold on this and then the crystals, and then why does he cut out the butterfly? So it's all just creative process. I think some artists will probably look at it and go, oh, that's terrible that artists are doing that. But I don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you work with any like graphic designers with your art?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love working with graphic designers, and I don't like to stay with the same graphic designer all the time either, because then you're putting yourself in a, you know, you're kind of pigeonholing what your art could be. I have a graphic designer that I work with, and I think she's somewhere in France. I have a graphic designer that I work with here. I have like 2 or 3 graphic designers that I work with. You know, if I want to turn something into a silkscreen shirt, or, you know, turn something into a graphic, or add a graphic, or cut something out. Yeah, I love working with graphic designers.
So like we're doing, the reason like you came on my radar is because we're doing that fashion show at your gallery next weekend, which thank you for letting us come and hang out. I really loved, like I came to like check your art out when you were doing that show a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really sure what to expect, kind of a thing.
Sure.
It's like, I mean, I've been to galleries in Lambertville, and, you know, most art's not my cup of tea. But when I came in, I was like, damn, like you really got it going on.
Well, it's totally different. I mean, the art in Lambertville is pretty indigenous to Lambertville, which to me is great. I mean, there's really some great artists in Lambertville that have studios there. Amazing, like Bucks County Impressionism and some abstract stuff here and there. But
it takes a lot. I appreciate the talent and the skill in there, but the art kind of has to speak to you in a way if like you're going to appreciate it. Yeah. And there was a couple pieces that you had that I was just like, all right, cool. Like this Perry guy.
Well, that
be a cool guy.
The Corona piece that I did it's of the molecular structure that you saw when we all were informed what it was. You saw that spike protein with all the little flowers. That's how that started in my garage when we were told our kids aren't going back to school for 2 weeks. I just took this giant canvas, I painted it black, I started doing all this stuff out of my mind, which I really don't paint that much from my imagination, although I do with those heart characters that I'm making. And it just became this thing. And then I wrote the word gratitude on it because I just found that it was such a unbelievable like renaissance of the spring and summer where you just had to stay so close knit to your family. And being that I had small kids, and when you walked around the neighborhood, you saw everybody, but you were still like high over there. And, you know, there was no airplanes in the sky and the flowers were blooming and everything. It was just this, to me, I mean, I didn't put the word gratitude on it for like a month because it was just such a special moment, although we were all scared to death. But we also knew that we were safe if we kind of stayed incubated within the people that we loved and close. I just thought it was unbelievable. So I put that word gratitude in the painting. I don't know if you remember seeing it on there.
I really, really liked that piece.
Yeah, and to me, like, that's a white elephant painting. Like, that's a painting that I call white elephant because that came from inside the artist. This is not white elephant. There's no white elephant in this room here. These are commercial pieces. So, you know, maybe that piece winds up in a museum if my art gets accredited to museums someday, or maybe someone tried to buy it a couple years ago. Someone in Margate, the very successful, I don't know if it's real estate or finance guy, but he didn't want to give me what I wanted, which is fine. But to me, like, that's a piece that really speaks to the type of paintings that I want to make all the time, but I'm inching my way there.
Yeah, so does it take, like, do you get to a point in your career where you've been so financially successful that you then can just focus on just doing those types of paintings?
Yeah, it's a goal. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a goal.
How much, like, not to speak, you know, too much inside baseball, but how much, like, when you price a piece of art, how do you, like, attack that from a business sense? Like, do you look at, like, the potential demand for it, the recreation potential? Like, how do you say, like, you know,
Really good question.
How do you kind of approach that as a businessman?
Well, I think the first thing I have to take into account is where I am in my career. You know, I'm not just out of high school or out of college, so I'm not selling my first painting for $600 like I did while I was valet parking cars at a restaurant. Someone came in and bought a big painting. I just got out of school, although the guy was very wealthy. He paid $600 for this giant, like, Mount Rushmore pop art piece that I did. Now he owns like 50 of my paintings, but he bought the first one for $600. He was at my show. He came after 40 years of buying my art. He's got like 50 originals. So you have to take that into consideration. But there's a famous saying, if you sell to the masses, you'll eat with the classes. And if you try and sell to the classes, you'll eat with the masses. Did I say that right?
Yeah, okay. I think you hit it right.
I think I got it.
We got what you putting down.
Yeah.
So the Harper piece is a great story. I did painting of him after he hit that big home run in the playoffs last year, which I thought there was going to be a bigger moment this year, but there wasn't. And when he hit that home run, I had never seen anything like that, and I've been watching the Phillies play for 40 years. So I painted it right away. And then I ran off 2,000 lithographs at a printing company that was in New Jersey that could make them for me really quick for $2,500, almost $1 a lithograph.
Damn.
A really nice lithograph on a 100-pound silver stock paper that I could sell for $75 a piece, signed and numbered. So I took some of the lithographs and I went to friends of mine that own bars and restaurants, and I just taped them up on the walls until I was able to get frames. There wasn't even any time. It was like the World Series. I'm like, okay, I can capitalize on this really quick if I get them out there. And I put it on social media. You have to be able to do it all at once. You got to have it physically out there. You have to have it on the phone. You have to be giving it to people. Well, someone was in Conshohocken at my friend's restaurant called Gypsy Blue. A secretary.
We know the owners of Gypsy Blue.
You know Kim and Marianne?
Yeah, they sold it to a friend of ours.
Okay, so you know Mike Golden.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I know Mike Golden 40 years.
Yeah, Mike Ross is that Mike Ross's dad's name?
I think so.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, his last name's Ross.
Oh, then yeah. It
I don't know. Maybe
yeah.
there's some little.
But
anyway,
yeah.
the story, the business.
Okay, so I hung up the print in Kim's place because I know Kim from a long time ago, and I used to work in the bar business with her when I was just out of school. The same restaurant where the guy bought the piece for $600. So she put up the posters. She goes, "Give me a couple of these posters." Next day, I get a phone call from a secretary who is calling about a gentleman that saw the poster in the restaurant, and she said, my boss would like to know where the painting is, and he wants to buy it. So I said, well, it's in my studio.
The original piece.
The original. And the original was 60 by 48. So
roughly that size.
That's 40 by 30. So it's double, at least double.
Oh, shit.
So I said, I'll sell it to him for $15,000. And she said, okay, we'll get back to you. So she got back to me the next day, and she goes, well, he'll buy it, but you need to get Bryce Harper to sign it. I said, I can't get him to sign it.
Yeah, $30,000.
It's the World Series right now, you know. So we went back and forth, and then he wanted 100 of the prints signed by Bryce Harper. And I called her back. I said, wow, who do you work for? Is he crazy? He wants me to go to Bryce Harper and get him to sign 100 copies of my print that I don't even have permission to make and take them and give them to him. I said, no way. So I said, this is the price, and that's it. So they called me 3 days later, and he bought the painting. And I still gave him 100 prints, but they weren't signed by Bryce Harper. They were signed by me. I'm like, look, here's your 100 prints. They're signed by me, and here's your painting. So, yeah.
Baller.
And, you know, I send them pictures of that one when I did it. But
you just have your son in your dining room just signing random
yeah,
prints.
so 3 stores called me within a week, and we sold close to 2,000 copies of that because it was still October. So between October and Christmas, I sold a ton of those. And I started selling them again last month because the Phillies were moving. So now it's slow, and now I'm on to the Eagles. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean, that's how you kind of figure out how to price things. If you think you got something really special, like I think that piece we were talking about that I did of the gratitude piece, I think that's a special piece. I think the Pope Francis piece is a really special piece. And when he passes away, that's going to be a deal that I have to create as far as creating a new licensing deal, because the license expired on that. So I'm free to market that however I want. And I think that could turn into a great commercial project for me. So, yeah, I mean, it's still a little tricky, but I have a pretty good idea on what I want for pieces.
So does it come mostly from the gut?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I know that I can.
Because you can make. How long did this painting take you to make?
This is a print, so this comes to me in a frame on the wood, just the black and white. Everything else I do afterwards. I spray the orange on, I put the gold on, I put the crystals on. Okay. But I pay like $100 for the print to show up at my door. So I can buy 20 of them at once and then just almost do like a conveyor belt process that a lot of pop artists do, whether Warhol or I'm trying to think of Damien Hirst or who's the guy that makes the bunny heads? I mean, he's the biggest at it. He's the biggest in the world. Jeff Koons. And then I can make all these quickly, and I can keep my price point down because it doesn't cost me a lot to manufacture them, and I can sell them to the masses.
So there's no real consideration for okay, this took me 8 hours to do. We multiply that. It's more so not much. No, in your heart what things will sell for, and you price them accordingly.
Somewhat has to do with the time and the quickness and the ability to make it. But there's some artists that'll be like, everything I make is 50,000, 100,000, 10,000, 20,000. I'm not like that. I want my work to go everywhere. And then when I'm 65, then I'll say, yeah, that's 50,000, that's 40,000. And if you don't want to pay me, I'll still have a cup of coffee with you. Yeah, because I don't need your money.
What is a painting? And you don't have to tell us, but what does a painting like the Corona painting go for? Currently, I mean, obviously, if you don't sell it and then the demand built, obviously there's factors.
I would let it off my wall for 10,000, 15,000. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a special piece. My grandmother used to always say to me, when I would bring girls over before I was married as a bachelor, I'm 25, 30 years old. I would call her the next day. I would always visit her on Sundays. I would bring a girl over once in a while, not every 3 weeks.
Yeah, you were killing it. We know. Now you're backtracking.
So I would say to her, Nana, I would say, what do you think of this girl Lisa or this girl Chrissy? Purr. She's pretty and she's nice.
You just come in and she Roman emperors.
She would say, she's not for you. She's not for you. And she would say, listen to me. She said, there's only one lid for every pot. There's only one lid for every pot. And I'm like, well, I use, pots at home, and I put a different lid that's almost the same fit.
Same.
And she goes, but there's only one lid that fits perfectly on a pot. And, so she was correlating that to the relationships. But when you have a painting, for instance, like that painting you're asking about, eventually it's only going to wind up in one person's collection or their home that speaks to them more than it spoke to anybody else. Because that's not a piece I'm going to print. I'm not going to make copies of that. That's not something that's going to be commercialized. That's an original oil, that's a onesie, a one-off, and that's going to go to someone special. That's going to be that pot with that one lid that fits it perfectly.
Yeah, so there's kind of two different Perrys then. There's like
there are.
Perry the business.
Maybe more than two.
Oh, damn. I don't know if we have time for all the Perrys. Too many Perrys. There's like the business artists, and then there's the artist.
Yeah.
How much time do you give the artist these days? Like in a week, do you set aside time to just like do
to create?
Yeah, just like for yourself, or like the Corona type art. Like how often do those opportunities come along?
Well, I'm always creating. I mean, my life is, when you get married and have kids, your kids become your life. I mean, my children are my greatest creation with my wife, because she's half of them. But so I'm the type of father that wants to cultivate my children's growth and be with them every day. And some artists or musicians or actors, they have kids and they're just 200 hours a week and they don't see their kids. So when I decided to do that, I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. So I have a very finite amount of time each week to create. I might have, honestly, could be no more than 30 hours in the studio, which is nothing. I mean, I could be on my computer at night trying to figure out business and calling Jackie or somebody to try and figure out where to place art or sell art or print art. And the business part of it's always in my mind, so it's not brushed to canvas. So it's not a lot of time, and it's not a lot of time to do the art that we're talking about, because I still think I'm too afraid, and I have to. It's so small of an amount of time. I know what I can do commercially to still taste that success, to provide, and stay at a certain pace. But you have to use fear as your friend at some point, and I know eventually that risk that I need to take, that bigger risk, I'm gonna have to do it, or else what are you living for?
Yeah.
I should have done it already. But it's coming, because it's starting to eat at me. It eats at me more and more.
What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of it not working.
Yeah. People not receiving it?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily people not receiving it, because I'm not worried about whether it's... I love that room that I'm doing in there with those guys. I think it's great. And the more I do it, like, when I'll be working on this painting, I'll have all these dirty brushes at the end of the day. Now I just take them in that room and start doing my real art, and I love to see what's happening. So it's growing. It's a seed that's growing. Just got to keep watering it. So, yeah.
So sometimes you just have to let it come to you.
It comes real fast when I'm starting to do it. Like, I did all that in like a week, just playing around at the end of the day, so I could see how fast it's trying to come out of me. But I'm still hindered by making stuff I know how to make that... I guess it's almost like, I equate a lot to sports. It's like, I don't know, like, is the team going to go to score 50 points in one game, or are they going to be conservative at a certain point and, take the reins off? And I'm not sure if that really makes sense, but...
I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Trying to get there.
Yeah.
I gotta be willing to be more in the unknown with my creativity. Like that, I know what that's gonna look like before I even paint it. I know exactly what it's gonna look like. The Corona piece, I had no idea what it was gonna look like. I could show you 100 photos on my phone of that painting. It doesn't look like anything that it looked like when I started.
Interesting.
That's the cool thing about it.
What do you like, going back to like the fashion event that we're doing? Do you ever dabble outside of painting? Like, have you ever like created any clothing or created, art for a company, or like say somebody needs like a wild billboard or anything? Like, do you do anything outside of what your day-to-day is?
I've done some clothes before, and the girls are giving me an opportunity to paint some. They brought over a bunch of bags, all kinds of leather and like Louis Vuitton and different bags that they want me to do my things on with the gold. And I'm going to do some of the characters, the Spread Your Love characters on it, because I said, well, what do you want? They said, well, do what you want. So that's perfect for me to explore that and do that on
Say
these
less.
bags. Yeah. And I've made shirts for people. I have 2 licensing deals that are out there where I was signed with Ethan Allen a couple of years ago, and I'm signed with this company called Met Colors. It's out of North Carolina, where I license a bunch of my images, and then they have the right to kind of change them or adapt them graphically, and then they turn them into different things, and they push them out to department stores and this and that. But I like putting. Someone just sent me a box of baseball bats, for instance, during the Phillies run, and he said, I want you to do your spin art on the bats, and I want you to do some sort of application of that painting, and we'll sell these custom spin art Bryce Harper, Perry Miles spin art Bryce Harper bats for the holiday. So I have like 6 of those sitting in the studio to do. Yeah, but I love painting on way more things. It's just time is there's no time.
Yeah.
But you got to create time.
What does a day in Perry's life look like?
The day is up at 5:30, try and get in a quick workout on the elliptical, and maybe 50 push-ups and a few dumbbells, make the coffee, walk the dog, get the kids up with my wife, make the breakfast, take the one to school, the other one goes on the bus, get right to the gallery, and focus, because time is ticking.
Yeah, so you get up, once you're in the gallery, your gallery isn't so much a place to show your art off as it is like your place to create.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a gallery when you were there because I had a show, I had an opening.
But the one room definitely, I think they were they had the champagne or something in there. My wife and I walked in there. I was like, this is business happens in this room. You could tell just like with the paint on the floor and the splatters. I'm like, what is this guy up to in here?
It might wind up all looking like that eventually, because it should, But I'm still very strategic in the way I want the space to look, because if an interior designer comes in, or it could be a builder like yourself, or someone that's it could be a finance guy, a lawyer, and it's very important how you present the art, because if it all looks like that room, it's hard for people to see it, how it might live in their own space or in their home. So I like to have it look some that way and some the other way. I mean, it's big enough where I might lean that towards other parts of the studio. Yeah.
What does your creative space look like? So for me, I do a lot of video work, and sometimes I feel that sometimes I need to get into a certain zone. What is that for you? Do you need to put on certain kind of music? Do you need to, have the room smell a certain way, or do you just get in there and have at it?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I when you talk about there's maybe 2 or 3 of me, I mean, I listen to like spiritual advisors like Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you ever heard of him, or Abraham.
That sounds familiar.
He's an unbelievable guy that talks about like epigenetics and spirituality with science combined. He's very famous. Or Abraham Hicks.
Yeah, Abraham Hicks.
I went to see her a couple of years ago, and I went to a workshop in Philly. Or I even go back to like Dr. Wayne Dyer, who was one of the foremost like self-help kind of gurus. But then I might switch that over and jam out like the Stones for an hour, or R&B, or just be quiet. The last couple of weeks I've been just creating in dead silence.
Why is that?
Because that's kind of where you connect with your chi or your soul, or more spiritual, and you just feel it.
How do you?
I put the news on last week for 3 days straight because I wanted to catch up on this horrific news. But then then I had 2 nightmares, and
that shit. I have to like. I did the same, just to kind of like stay up to date. But then you find yourself getting like you just like you're fucking angry, and then you see people's like dumb fucking comments on the internet or things, and you're like, you know what? I need to take a break from this.
I needed to take a break. I mean, I actually my little boy woke up last night at 3 a.m. because sometimes he gets like the little growing pains in his feet or something. So I gave him a little peyote cream, like CBD cream. Not peyote, CBD cream. It came from Mexico because my in-laws are from Mexico. And I gave him a little Tylenol. I jumped in his bed with him because it was so late. I'm just like, I'll just sleep the rest of the night here. And then I had a dream, because you take everything into your subconscious mind that's in your conscious mind all day. It's just the way our brains work. I had a dream that I was in Disney World with him within 20 minutes of laying in his bed, and someone took him, or he disappeared. And then my phone was gone, and this went on from 3:30 to 5:15, and I woke up and I was like, whoa. I'm like, that's from watching the news. because you could just see the correlation to me diving into the news.
You
last
wake up
week.
with your gun in your hand, like
Yeah,
you're like, whoa,
well-
whoa, whoa.
Sleepwalking.
I didn't even. I usually like to tell my wife, you know, good morning, how you doing? And like, I didn't even want to go over that dream. You know, it was negative.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, getting back to, I just don't know what's going to happen in the studio. Like, I like that feeling of walking in. I have tremendous sunlight in that place. You were there. It was kind of, it's the fall, so it's darker early. But I'm on the canal, and it's beautiful, beautiful light in that space. I have, I think, 21 huge windows. So I almost feel like I'm outside, and I'm over the canal, and there's a lot of wildlife. So it's a very almost ethereal setting in there. So, you know, it could be soft music, could be some loud music, could be a podcast. It just depends kind of maybe on what I'm doing. Yeah.
Interesting. You've touched a little bit on like spirituality. I don't know what religion you practice, but do you go to like church, or I mean, if you're Jewish, you go to synagogue? Like, do you practice anything formally?
My father was a German Jew, but not practicing. My mom is a Roman Catholic, born Roman Catholic, but I was raised Jewish. But you're usually raised away from your mother's faith.
Yeah.
But my mom, it was the opposite. She was born Roman Catholic and converted. But now I don't really profess to any faith. My kids go to church, and I love going to church with them. I probably attend church more than I do the synagogue, because we're not really a Jewish raised family. We're a Catholic family. Although I'm to me a melting pot of all faiths. We all are. You know, we're all born from the dust of the stars. And that's the way I see it now. I didn't really necessarily see it that way before, but that's the way I see it now. And to me, that's the sadness of what takes place in this world. Not only, you know, isn't there enough land to share, and isn't there enough money and minds and leaders to figure out how we can share land, and then on top of that, not fight over what you believe or what I believe or what color you are. And
Yeah, it's definitely. I subscribe more to the Stardust
yeah,
religion type thing. Like, I think you're kind of the same way. We've talked
we're all
about
born.
it a lot.
We're all born from energy.
Yeah.
We're born from the nova.
Yeah.
How do you think it's obvious?
The more, like, I'm a big like science and history type guy, and the more I studied about history involving like religions, the more I realized that religion is a great way to kind of like manipulate people and get something out of the masses.
Of course.
You know, the one thing, you know, we've talked about before is kind of like the why Catholics eat fish on Fridays and things like that. It was because back then eating fish was kind of like not really a thing, and the Roman Catholic Church owned all the fisheries. So they created this like religious reason why to eat fish, so they could make money. And you still have people today, like somebody's grandmother's like, oh, you can't eat meat, it's fried. Like, and it's like, well, it's like, but that's just a low-lying, you know, damage. But then you have these people that hate each other based upon what they believe. I was like, you know what? I need to just like,
And
This isn't for me.
within the same religion, I mean, if you look at the Arabs, for instance, and I mean, I have friends from Syria. I have friends from Iran. I dated a girl from Persia once. I mean, so but if you look at the different, whether they're Orthodox or this or that, they all fight amongst each other. The Jews fight amongst each other. The Arabs fight amongst each other. It's insanity. I mean, then I listened to this guy, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'll turn you on to him. He talks about how, you know, our world lacks these leaders like Christ and Gandhi and Mandela now. Like, where are the leaders like those men who totally lived in the unknown and totally were fearless, but taught total love and forgiveness and acceptance of everyone, and were nonviolent, you know?
yeah, do you not like, we're not really a political podcast, but do you know who RFK is, like Robert Kennedy Jr.?
Yeah, of course. I've been listening to him.
Yeah, what do you like, what's your hot take on that guy?
Well, I I did 4 paintings of his grandfather from '63 when John, not his grandfather,
His uncle.
His uncle.
Yeah.
When John, you ever see the brave blue boy in the suit when he saluted unannounced? He did that. I've done 4 paintings of that. I actually sent one to him when he was still alive and was the publisher of George Magazine. So I always had this kind of like, because of the type of stuff I've created, and that's a very iconic image. I was always enthralled by the Kennedy family, and what happened to John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, and how JFK Jr. passed away. So now I'm like, oh my God, I got to find out a little bit about RFK Jr. So I'm listening to him, and most people think he's nuts.
Yeah, I really, at first, I was kind of like, this guy's going to get himself killed. And now I'm like listening to him, and I'm like, we got to keep this guy alive.
Because I really think he's smart.
I think he could do some really good things for our country in terms of what you're talking about.
I think he's very smart, but his biggest problem is he's separated from both parties. He's ripping the government he's calling out the government for its failures on both sides and how it doesn't work. And who knows what's going to happen. I think he's polarizing. His voice as a communicator is a little hard to get past.
With the raspiness of it?
Yeah. I mean,
at first it was, when I first heard him speak, it was on Joe Rogan. And I had already read his most recent book about Fauci. And I didn't know that he had that reaction to whatever vaccine, and it caused his whole voice.
Oh, he's a big anti-vax, correct?
Yeah, that's why his voice is like that. He had
from the vaccine.
He had a negative reaction, not from the corona vaccine, but from a different one.
Oh, okay. Yes. So he sounded different.
Yeah, so it kind of something happened with his vocal cords.
But don't you think that as far as not as I would guess his commercial appeal to people, I think because everybody is so about what's on the outside of you instead of the inside. And in politics, a lot of it is how you present. I mean, if you look at how Trump won, I mean, of course he won because he was an outsider, but the way he presented himself was, incredible.
Yeah, he was gloves off. He was funny.
Yeah,
he was, attacking
Even
people.
if you look at the way that when Biden picked Kamala Harris to run as his VP, she presented herself and can really speak. And I just think that RFK, I thought John McCain was a brilliant guy, but he just couldn't talk, he couldn't communicate, he couldn't appeal. And I think he's a very, very bright guy. And I'm seeing him talk more and more on Instagram because the world is just on Instagram. You don't even need to turn on the news. But I think that's going to hurt him.
Yeah.
And I think it's hurting him already because I think people will listen to him for 20 seconds and be like, he's nuts. But I don't really think he's nuts.
No,
I'm trying to learn more from him.
I think he's pretty intelligent. I do understand what you're saying about his voice because when I first heard him on Rogan, I was like, oh, Jesus. I had to shut it off because I couldn't, there was something about it. But now that I think I've heard him speak in so many little blips.
Yeah, your mind's getting used to it.
I think I'm just kind of used to it now. Yeah. So when I hear him, I'm just desensitized to it maybe.
Yeah, and you're patient. Now you want to learn more about him.
Yeah.
But the majority of people aren't going to do that.
When I learned about what he did for the environment on a bunch of different levels, just the physical environment that
That's
we live in.
That's a big thing for him.
I was like, damn, maybe this guy's not so bad.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. He's declared himself an independent.
Yeah.
I guess he's got money.
He's getting a lot of funding from individuals, grassroots funding, and on record-breaking levels. Look, I don't know if it'll be enough to make a difference.
He's going to debate. I cannot wait to see him stand up and debate.
Yeah.
He's going to debate.
Well, he's a world-class debater.
Oh, yeah. He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see him debate.
Damn, that's exciting. Yeah. I
Oh,
love watching the debates.
Oh, yeah. When you see him, because he's got a presence, right? Yeah. He's got a great presence.
I want to see him and the dog get out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I want to see him and Trump get out there. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Somebody like Trump. Trump's a great debater, but he's not great in the sense that RFK is great. RFK is an insane debater, whereas Trump's just he just takes your base from you. He just pulls the stool right out. He's not really that good of a debater as he is attacking you.
Yeah, he doesn't really say shit.
He gets people ruffled up and then they don't know what to say. Whereas RFK, I don't think that's going to work on him because he is a world-class debater in terms of litigating.
That's Trump's talent. That's talent.
Have you ever painted Trump?
No, I haven't painted Trump. I painted Biden. I have a very good friend in Philadelphia who's a big lobbyist. He has a big law firm. Been working for President Biden for his whole career. He met me at a philanthropic event years ago, and he's bought some Bruce Springsteen art from me and some pieces. And he came up to me about 5-6 years ago, before he was president, when he became vice president. And there was a portrait he wanted me to paint of then Vice President Biden from 1978, first junior senator. He wanted me to recreate like a poster from his campaign, very young, full of hair, and I made the painting for him. So a donor bought the painting, and they presented it to then Vice President Biden when he took his last train ride back from D.C., because he always rode the train back to Delaware every day to be with his family. And I wasn't at the platform in Delaware, but the whole contingency was. It was all over the news, and they gave him the painting. And then a couple years later, when he declared he was finally going to run, who did he beat? He didn't beat Trump.
Well, he beat Trump in the last election.
Yeah, when he beat Trump, he asked me to do another painting, and I don't know if you saw it on my website.
No.
It's not in a gallery because another donor commissioned it, but I made a painting of him on a coffee cup, and it was called Cup of Joe.
Okay.
And it was a painting of him drinking a cup of coffee with his face on it, and then we turned it into a coffee mug. And I had a partner in Seattle who launches entrepreneurs on Amazon, and within the 3 weeks prior and after the election, 10,000 mugs sold, and the mug was $35. So
Damn.
that was a great project. So long story short, I had a guy come to me a couple weeks ago who's a friend of mine. His wife actually does she's my financial consultant. She handles my portfolio. And he's a big Trump lover, huge. He has a place in Naples, Florida. He's a cool guy. He's from Spain. So he's, he's not even born in the United States. Big Trump lover. And he saw all the artwork I did for the president. He goes, "Oh, that was a terrible mistake, you doing that, and look what's happening now." And I'm like, "Okay, Bruno, let's not talk about
It's just
politics."
business, bro.
Yeah. So he goes, "Well, are you going to paint Trump now?" And he goes, "I'll do a project with you." And I'm like, "Well," I go, "I don't know. I'm not, I don't know." And he goes, "Well, you can be incognito on the project. You don't even have to put your name on it, but we can make millions of dollars." And I go, "Well, number one, I wouldn't do it right now. The election's in another year." So he started.
You don't want to put your run out of gas before
Yeah, I wouldn't do it now anyway. I would wait, because that's how I did really well in the Biden art. And he started sending me all this imagery of Trump, the Terminator, the Don, the Don from the Don father. I mean, there's all this stuff, Rocky's body, and he, come on, let's do it. And so
I'm always partial to it's probably graphic art. Nobody probably painted it, but there's a bunch of paintings of Abraham Lincoln on the back of a bear with a machine gun.
I love
all
those.
those ones.
Those are funny.
That's just when they do those right. It really captures the spirit.
I'm probably going to stay away from it.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to stay away from it.
Yeah. Even if the business is good.
We'll have to keep talking. The business will be great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did that piece for the election, and there's this famous book that I read. It's called The Four Agreements. It's a very famous book that a lot of people read.
Yeah.
It's written by the Toltec Indians from Mexico, and the Four Agreements are use your words impeccably, always do your best, never assume, and don't take anything personally. So in my field, I don't care if you don't like that painting. I don't care if you walk out of here and go, "I don't want to come to your show next week." I got an opportunity to talk to you, and maybe you don't like my art anymore. But it doesn't matter. Not everyone's going to like my art. So when I did that project, a lot of people, a lot of clients of mine that were Republicans, I heard it from them nonstop on Facebook, nonstop. But I think I have a pretty good idea on how to talk to people and not make it personal, like I just said. And we had conversations, and then some of the conversations with other people that were commenting on my work, that they weren't even talking about the art anymore. The art just led to a conversation of other people talking about Trump and the whole thing, which is great because that's what the art does. It makes people speak. And I would moderate on the conversations after a while. I'd be like, and I would know like the two people that were having an argument, but they didn't really know each other. I would know the two of them, and I'd be like, hey, this is an example of how we're not supposed to be talking to each other.
Interesting. So like instead of being a catalyst for like positive conversation, it was like a catalyst for like people attacking each other, and that didn't feel good.
They weren't even talking about my art anymore. It just the art led to, oh, how could you do that? And I knew your father, and he lived here, and his taxes are this, and blah blah blah. But I said, just learn how to talk in the right manner. Learn how to be respectful.
I've learned. This is going back to like the coronavirus. A really close friend of mine was just like, hey, the comment section, like they're not giving out medals. Like you're not getting a gold medal in the comments. And I was like, damn, that's so true. So a lot of times I'll like peruse the comments just to kind of see what's going on. And that, like, especially after the last week or two, like that's been brutal to kind of peruse. So I kind of stopped doing it. But it's interesting to me how many people kind of like attack each other. Whereas my point of view is like sometimes when people say things that I don't agree with, I've gotten pretty good at just like getting to know those people, or like, especially from the podcast, like learning how to learn about someone.
Sure.
And then being like, I can see why you think that. Like, I can understand why you think that. And I don't say that, but I'll see something and I'll be like, I don't agree with that. Or like those people are maybe a little uneducated on the topic or something like that. But it's like, oh, you think that way because like you just don't know about this thing or you don't know about that. And like people don't give each other that grace. Like they just like judge you for what car you drive or, what neighborhood you live in. And they're like, oh, you vote Democrat even though you live in blah, blah, blah. And you do this and your parents were that. It's like, oh, it's
well,
like you're assuming so much.
What you said is, and that's one of the 4 agreements. Yeah. Don't make assumptions but we're all guilty of it. We're having this human experience, but we're really spiritual creatures having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. But when you said about giving people the opportunity of the grace, what did you say?
Just giving people grace to just like, have the space around them to just like have their thoughts and like, and maybe they go back and they realize like, oh, I used to think this, but I didn't. Yeah, but if you attack them, you never give them the opportunity. They just root themselves even harder in those ideals.
I mean, sure. If you could give me a test on policies and this and that, whether it's the acting president or the past and versus against what they were doing, I probably wouldn't do too well on it. But I would probably be one of the first to admit that. Okay, now I can learn. If you can talk to me in a respectful way, then teach me what the facts are, so I can learn a little bit more about what Trump did differently in the Middle East 2 years ago versus what's happening. Like how would he handle this, and why was there peace in the last? I had a conversation with someone this morning about it. A friend of mine that's a very pro-Biden guy, and I voted for President Biden. But I said, well, what was Trump doing the last 3 years that didn't cause this rift that just exploded now? And I didn't know the answer, so I wanted him to give me what he knew, and he gave me a million facts, but I'm not so sure all his facts were right either. So then, then what do I do? Then there's
some creativity in the fact world these days.
Oh, of course.
But it's also you look at how sure we are as people nowadays. Because like we think we're very powerful with the internet at our hands, but at the same time, you look back on like past history and like what about like something like the Crusades or World War I or World War II, and it's like, do we know though? Like, do we know? And then you see stuff that happened yesterday. Like the perfect example was like, I guess like that one rocket attack in Gaza that
attack yesterday.
Yeah. No, it was last week where it hit a hospital or something like that, and everybody was like going against Israel about it. And then it's like, well, actually, that rocket went off because some jackass in Gaza, like, I don't know how it went off, but like they accidentally shot a hospital with a rocket.
Right, because
like it's like shit, like that's a big mess up. But you didn't hear anybody go back and be like, oh, we got this wrong. So like there are people today that you could probably go out into the world and be like, well, Israel bombed that hospital. And it's like, well, that's not actually what happened. But if you go 50 years from now, how, like, they're going to get less accurate with the information. So now you look back in history and you're kind of like, well, what is true, what is not, doesn't matter.
My daughter, who's in 8th grade, she goes to Pennington prep school here.
Okay.
It's a fabulous school. And in her world cultures right now, her whole first half of the school year is about banned books. And, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Studying banned books, or they're sharing bad books?
They're studying the books that are now being banned.
Oh, okay.
And some of these books that we read, I remember reading in 6th, 7th, 8th grade about race and about religion and about this or that. They're banned, not across the board in the country, but in different states and in different communities, they're banned. And it's really interesting talking to her on the way to school. And she's been playing them on the audiobooks. It's really, really cool because it's all going back to what information the country or part of the country, whether it's blue or red, wants the kids to know and what's in the schools. And it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird, Huck Finn, a lot of the Mark Twain books. Like, I don't know what books are actually being banned.
A lot.
Yeah. But a lot of those books, like...
The Diary of Anne Frank is being banned in some schools.
I'd really be interested to... I mean, I see, like, the lawn signs and stuff like that, but I didn't know that. Yeah. And that's kind of... that's really interesting. I would love to talk to someone who feels that Anne Frank is a harm to children or education, because you're seeing it in the world today with like different. Like I saw a bunch of videos, and again, like I don't know if they're true or not true videos. Like we know a lot about video editing. You can make a lot of things look a certain way, but I saw. Assumably, there was a plane with Jews from Tel Aviv that landed in like Dagestan, Russia.
I saw it.
And then like they were being, attacked or whatever.
From the airport.
And I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, we are really fucking up. Like we are really starting to like forget how we got here. And we're really just like, it's kind of like, damn, did anybody open a book? Did anybody read Anne Frank? Like, did we not learn that this isn't like, but obviously those people, for whatever reason, like,
I saw the video.
They're flawed. So we grew up, and like you grew up in America where like we were the best. Like we took care of, like we were the country of immigrants. We were like blah, blah, blah. And to see how things have kind of shifted culturally very quickly in the last like 10 or so years, it's just kind of like, damn, history really does repeat itself. And it's really hard to be in the repeat process or like actively being like, damn, we've already done this. Like go back and read World War I books. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, well, you can look at the glass half full, or you could look at it half empty every day. So
put some water in this glass here.
But I still tend to wake up and want to look at it half full.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's the creative or spiritual side of you?
Well, I mean, what is going to blossom out of this horror right now, I hope, is something beautiful eventually. I mean, but right now it's not. So, but I'm still hoping that there's always hope. You should never, ever relinquish hope on a friend, the world, or country. To me, it's always hope. Maybe that does stem from being a creative person, because I'm always I'm making something, making magic, creating something. But yeah.
Hope. Would you consider yourself a realist or an idealist or like an amalgamation of both? What would you consider yourself?
A realist? What was the second one?
Or an idealist. Like usually people are idealists or they're realists. Like they see things like this is how it is, this is how we get to the next thing. Or there's people that are idealists. Like an idealist would be something like, we want free healthcare for everyone, regardless of like how we put it together. Whereas the realist looks at it as like, yeah, we could do that, but we have to put it together this way to make it work. Whereas the idealist kind of just like, you know what, whatever you got to do to make it work, that's what we need. And that was maybe a bad example.
I don't know how to answer that question. I like the idealist way of things.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what to classify
Yeah.
for you, because like you have this like really good business sense that I can pick up on, but you're also very creative, and creatives tend to be more like idealists. Like they can see the world as it should be, rather than how it is.
I think I'm a little bit of both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's been awesome
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
We could talk all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we both could probably talk all night, but
Very cool.
we'll let you get out of here.
Gotta
Perry-
go be a daddy.
Yeah, Perry, thanks so much for coming on.
Great to be
I
here.
really appreciate
I'm
you
looking
coming.
forward to having you guys at the fashion show. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see. I've told a lot of people about your art that are coming, so I'm excited to see like what they think.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. I really appreciate you coming in. I'm glad we got
Awesome
to
to be here.
Yeah.
So when do I watch this?
Monday night at 6 p.m.
Okay. I just go on your channel.
Premieres worldwide. Yeah.
Worldwide.
Yeah, Mr. Worldwide. Yeah, you can listen to it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. You can listen to it or enjoy it with your eyes.
Awesome. Oh, so where do I watch the video? On
YouTube.
On YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll watch it.
Cool. We'll make sure Jackie sends you the link.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you have anything to say to the viewers? Do you leave us on any tips or tricks here? How to live our life? Like what are you going to send us off on?
You know, I always tell I you know, being a father that became a father later in life. I had my boy when I was 48. So most adults have children when they're younger, but to me, everything is about communicating. And I'm always telling my kids, look me here. I want to see your eyes. I don't want to see, we're all on here. But to me, self-expression is so important, and being able to talk to each other. To me, that's such a great gift to have the courage to speak and express yourself or create. But more so, seeing the children, because they're the future of our society, and you can always say that. But seeing young kids being able to express themselves, and adults alike, like this is an awesome conversation. Being able to speak, being able to communicate, being able to look at you guys and talk about everything. So to me, communication is so important.
Dude, thanks so much for coming. This was Perry, Andrew, Gilmar, Rambo on the floor, 86 West, serving up the drinks and the food. We're going downstairs to enjoy. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Hit that subscribe and like button, and we'll see you next week.